At my graduation party, my mentor told my parents, "She's a flicker in a world built for flames." I hugged him in thanks. 30 years later, as nations sign trade deals written by my hand, as generations read textbooks that bore my theories, his name vanished quietly, a brief breath in the winds of time, while mine remained etched into stone deeper than any throne he ever dreamed of touching. When people talk about where you came from, they usually mean something proud. A hometown with parades, a family that cheers for you, some sort of roots that feel warm when you talk about them. Not for me. I came from the third floor of a half-condemned building off Dorchester Avenue in Boston. A two-bedroom apartment where the heater broke every winter, and the ceiling fans clanged like dying birds every summer. My mom cleaned houses. My dad fixed cars in a junkyard that barely paid cash under the table. We never had enough, but somehow we made it look like we did. That's what survival teaches you. I wasn't the smart kid. I was the hungry kid. In school, I wasn't the one everyone thought would go far. I wasn't class president or homecoming queen. I was the girl reading old library books under the bleachers during lunch. I was the girl who learned big words too early and had no one to say them to. Everything changed when I was 16. I got picked for a pilot program at community college, was letting high school kids take college-level courses for free. It was a way to lift up local youth, they said. Honestly, it was a PR stunt. They didn't expect us to finish, let alone excel. That's when I met Dr. Anthony Cleary. He was a political science professor. Mid-50s wore those stiff suits that always looked like they needed dry cleaning. Balding, but he kept a beard trimmed neat. He had a voice that could cut glass sharp, clean, like he didn't say a single word he didn't mean. He made people feel small without even raising his voice. I saw it happen the first day when a kid in the back asked a dumb question and Cleary just stared at him until he slouched so low he nearly slid under the desk. I thought he was brilliant. I wanted him to see me. At first, I was just another body in the room. I wasn't fast enough, sharp enough. I could feel it. But I fought harder. I did the readings twice. I stayed after class and asked questions, even when he answered me with a thin smile like he knew I was begging for crumbs. Weeks went by. Then months. The first time he even noticed me, it was because I turned in a term paper that challenged one of his theories about power structures in trade economics. I thought he'd tear me apart. Instead, when he handed it back, he had written one word in the corner. Interesting. That word hit me harder than any trophy ever could. From then on, I became a shadow around him. Office hours, side projects, anything. I rewrote my work 3 times before showing it to him. I read the books he casually mentioned in passing like they were holy scriptures. I thought maybe someday he would say I was more than interesting. Fast forward to senior year. I got into Boston University. Full ride. My parents cried so hard my mom had to sit down. We didn't have much, but they threw me a graduation party anyway. Rented the local VFW hall. Decorated it with dollar store streamers. Served trays of baked ziti my aunts cooked themselves. I invited Dr. Cleary. Honestly, I didn't think he'd come. But he did. He showed up late, wearing a gray jacket that was way too nice for the room, carrying a thin package under his arm. I saw people whisper he looked important. And for a second I felt important too. He shook my father's rough, calloused hand, kissed my mother's cheek, handed me the package. Inside was a used copy of Plato's The Republic, the pages soft from decades of turning. His name was scribbled on the inside cover, from when he was a young man himself. It should have been a touching moment. Instead, it became the moment that burned itself into my bones. Because later that night, when I was helping clean up, I caught him talking to my parents by the punch table. I heard his voice clear as day over the crinkle of plastic cups and the clang of the hall's cheap chairs. He said, "She's a flicker in a world built for flames. She'll shine for a bit, but the real world will blow her out." My mom gave a polite little laugh. She didn't understand. My dad just nodded. But me? I stood there frozen, holding a trash bag full of half-eaten cake and soda cans, feeling like someone had slammed a door in my chest. He didn't see me as a prodigy. He saw me as a mistake. An accident. A momentary light he was sure would burn out. And I don't know why I did it, but I walked over and hugged him. Tight. I smiled so wide it hurt. I said, Thank you for everything. Inside, though, I made a promise. I would not burn out. I would not fade. I would become the fire itself. And he would be nothing but a forgotten breath in a world too big to remember him. The next 3 decades were war. I didn't get a golden ticket. I wasn't some hidden genius who got discovered and handed power. No, I fought for every inch. I worked 3 jobs during undergrad. Waitressing, tutoring, cleaning houses. I spent nights sleeping under library desks between shifts. I turned down parties, boyfriends, vacations. There was no room for anything but the mission. I chased scholarships. I hunted internships. I built networks out of scraps. People thought I was lucky when I got into Georgetown for my master's. They thought it was a miracle when Columbia accepted me for a PhD. They didn't know about the nights I spent drinking stale coffee until my stomach bled. They didn't see the rejection letters I pinned to my walls as targets. After school, I refused to teach. I went into think tanks, into the blood and bones of policymaking. The ugly parts nobody wants to write about in biographies. I sat through meetings where old men patted my hand and called me sweetheart while stealing my ideas. And I sharpened myself against them until they bled. By 40, my name was on papers that rewrote global trade agreements. I was invited to summits where I sat at the same table as presidents and prime ministers. I didn't just succeed. I became necessary. My theories became the foundation of textbooks used from high schools to Ivy Leagues. My words were quoted in debates, my models applied in billion-dollar trade deals. I built an empire of influence so wide that countries learned to spell my name before they learned their own trade laws. And Dr. Cleary? He stayed in Boston. Never left that sad little community college. Gave the same lectures to smaller and smaller rooms. Wrote one self-published book that nobody cited. Taught a night course at a local adult center when enrollments dropped. He was forgotten before he even knew he was being erased. I made sure of it. When I sat on panels selecting textbooks for national curriculums, I voted against anything that quoted him. When young students cited his theories in their papers, I marked them as outdated, told them to look for more modern voices. When journalists asked who influenced me, I rattled off a list of mentors from big schools, names with clout and weight. Never once did I let his name pass my lips. The world forgot him. I made sure of it. Last year I heard he died. No front-page obit. No campus memorial. Just a few old students posting fuzzy black and white pictures on a Facebook page no one visited. I almost didn't feel anything. Almost. Then late that night, alone in my office overlooking the city, I stood at the window and watched the lights of Boston spread out below me like a living map. And I smiled. He called me a flicker. He thought the real world would blow me out. But the real world swallowed him whole, without even remembering to spit. And me? I'm still burning. For a while I thought that was it. I thought the story was over. I won. He lost. End of chapter. But life doesn't let you write clean endings. Not when pride's involved. Not when ghosts have a way of finding cracks you didn't know you had. It started with an email. An ordinary Tuesday morning. Coffee barely cold. Inbox overflowing like usual. Subject line: Inquiry regarding Dr. Anthony Cleary's legacy project. I almost deleted it without opening it. But something made me click. The message was from a woman named Cynthia Moran, head of a small liberal arts college up in Vermont. She wrote about how they were curating the legacies of underappreciated thinkers from New England. She said she found references to Dr. Cleary's early works, particularly in the same field I had revolutionized. She wanted to interview me. She wanted me, of all people, to endorse his contributions, to help revive his name. I stared at the screen, coffee cooling in my hand, rage creeping slow and thick up my spine. After 30 years. After everything. They wanted me to dust off his memory, like some forgotten relic. To lend him my light, after he tried to snuff mine out. I closed the email without responding. A week passed. Then another email came. More desperate. More formal. Offering a small stipend for my expert testimony. Then a phone call, from an unknown number. I let it ring. Another call. Another voicemail. Finally, late one night, after a long meeting overseas, exhausted and raw, I picked up without thinking. It was Cynthia. She launched straight into her pitch, talking about how Cleary was misunderstood, how early thinkers often got overshadowed, how it was our duty to honor the ones who paved the way. I cut her off. "He didn't pave my way," I said. "He tried to bury it before it even began." There was a pause. Then, in a tone too soft to be anything but a knife, she said, "You know, some would say you owe him everything. Without him, there might not be a you at all." That was when the real twist dropped. Cynthia wasn't just some academic trying to preserve history. She was Cleary's daughter, born late in his life, raised mostly without him, but still carrying his bitterness in her blood. She had spent the last 5 years trying to rebuild what was left of his name, and she saw me, the woman he failed to crush, as the perfect tool to do it. Her voice changed after that. No more polite academia. No more careful phrasing. "You owe him," she said. "He saw something in you before anyone else. He shaped you. You carry his fingerprints whether you like it or not." I sat there, staring out the window of my hotel room, listening to the storm roll in across the city skyline. Maybe she was right. Maybe every fire needs something to burn against. Maybe, in some twisted way, I was his legacy. But here's the thing about fires. They don't pay tribute to the things they consume. They just leave ashes. I hung up, blocked her number, deleted the emails. But it didn't end there. She went public. She started writing op-eds, blog posts, podcast interviews, painting Cleary as the forgotten architect of a generation, hinting without ever saying it outright that I built my empire on his back. The whispers started. Old colleagues asking careful questions. Journalists poking around, sniffing for scandal. Did Cleary really mentor her? Did she steal from him? Did she erase him to make herself bigger? Suddenly, I was fighting not just to hold my place but to keep my own story from being rewritten by the daughter of the man who once called me a flicker. And somewhere deep inside, a part of me that I thought was long dead, the part that still wanted approval, that still remembered hugging him at that party, started to tremble. Had I become exactly what he said I would be? A flicker desperate for air? Or had I truly become the flame? I didn't know. Not yet. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't done fighting. And this time the battle wasn't just about forgetting him. It was about making sure the world never ever confused his ashes for my fire. At first I thought I could just ignore her. I told myself, let her rant. Let her post. Real power didn't live on blogs. It lived in rooms with locked doors and marble tables. Rooms where my voice still mattered. But the world had changed since I first clawed my way up. Truth didn't matter anymore. Narrative did. Cynthia was relentless. She gathered old students of Cleary's, some who barely remembered him but wanted a piece of the drama. She dug up my old essays from when I was 17, work Cleary had graded, and posted them online next to his comments, trying to draw a line between him and everything I built after. She even found an old photo from my graduation party, me, young and smiling, hugging him like a daughter would hug a father. She posted it everywhere. Hashtag Cleary's legacy started trending in academic circles. News outlets began sniffing around for a bigger story. And the worst part? Some of the people who should have stood by me, the ones who built careers off my policies, off my models, started stepping back. They didn't defend me. They didn't attack me. They just waited. Because loyalty is rare in the world I live in, and fear is contagious. The final straw came when Harvard announced they were considering adding a Pioneers of Political Theory exhibit to their Museum of Governance, and Cleary's name was shortlisted. Cynthia had lobbied for it, and they reached out to me, asking for a formal statement of reflection on Dr. Anthony Cleary's impact on the field. They didn't ask. They expected. Because even now, even after all my wars, all my victories, I was still a woman in a world built by old men. And old men loved the idea of a neat packaged narrative where the student humbly acknowledged the teacher. They wanted my blood. Or worse, my gratitude. I didn't sleep for 3 nights after that email. Not because I was afraid of losing my titles, my influence, my empire. Because a small, brutal voice inside me whispered, maybe you wouldn't exist without him. Maybe he didn't just call you a flicker. Maybe he lit you. Maybe everything you are is because of him. The idea made me sick. I refused to let that be true. So I made a decision. A brutal one. A final one. If they wanted to tie me to Cleary's name, if they wanted to drag me into the mud he left behind, then I would burn the whole narrative down before I let them bury me under it. I hired a private firm, not the kind you find in the yellow pages, the kind that rich people use when they want to make things disappear without headlines. I didn't want scandal. I wanted truth. And I wanted it clean. I told them. Find everything. Every paper Cleary ever published. Every lecture he ever gave. Every conversation, every whisper, every slip. Anything I could use. And they found it. Turns out, Dr. Anthony Cleary wasn't the brilliant mind he pretended to be. Half the theories he taught were stolen from minor European academics no one in America had heard of. The few papers he did publish were riddled with errors, some serious enough to have disqualified them from serious journals. And worse? They found internal complaints from students at the community college, years of them claiming Cleary belittled women, discredited minority students, and plagiarized work from his teaching assistants. He wasn't just a forgotten man. He was a fraud, a bully, a relic of a system too broken to notice him rotting from the inside. The night I got the final report, I sat at my desk with the file open in front of me. It felt cold, heavy. I thought I would feel joy, vindication, victory. Instead, all I felt was tired. He wasn't a flame. He wasn't even a flicker. He was just smoke. Always was. And somehow I had wasted years fighting a ghost. But now I had a choice. I could take the evidence public, blow up the entire Cleary myth before it even got a chance to root. Or I could do something worse. Something final. Something he would have hated more than being exposed. I could let him stay forgotten.
No glory. No martyrdom. No scandal.
No story. Just dust. Just silence. Exactly what he deserved. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The city was still asleep. Quiet. Heavy. I sat at my desk and stared at 2 emails sitting in my drafts folder. One had all the evidence attached. One push of a button, and Anthony Cleary's name would not just vanish, it would shatter. Public disgrace. Historical erasure. The other was empty. Just a blank reply to Harvard, declining to comment, letting Cleary's so-called legacy fade on its own. It should have been easy. I had waited 30 years for this. I had fought wars, climbed mountains, bled under every door he thought would stay closed to me. And now, finally, he was nothing. All I had to do was choose how deep I wanted to dig the grave. But the truth was, I wasn't as clean as I wanted to be. I had built a career off walls he helped build. Even if he didn't intend to teach me anything, even if all he gave me was his cruelty, it had shaped me. He threw me into the fire. And yes, I burned hotter than he ever dreamed. But would I have burned at all without him? Would I have fought this hard if he hadn't made me believe the whole world was waiting to blow me out? I didn't know. And I hated that I didn't know. In the end, I made my choice. I didn't send the evidence. I didn't save him either. I left Cleary's memory right where it deserved to be, half remembered by a few desperate voices, slowly fading into dust without scandal, without celebration. No museum exhibit. No fancy plaque. No whispered myth among students who would never know his name. Cynthia tried to keep fighting for a while. She kept writing, kept screaming into the void. But eventually the world moved on. It always does. As for me, I kept building. My work went into textbooks for another generation. My theories shaped another wave of trade agreements, peace treaties, economic blueprints. Presidents quoted me. Nations adopted my frameworks. I spoke at commencements where young women looked up at me with shining eyes, believing anything was possible. And sometimes late at night I thought about him. About the man who thought I would flicker and die. About the man who couldn't even keep his own fire alive. In the end, there was no grave for him.
No statue.
No speech. No memory that outlived the rain. Just a whisper in a city too busy to notice. And me? I was the flame that lit the sky. Not because of him. Not in spite of him. But because when the world tried to blow me out, I chose to burn brighter.